Eric, sit down. Five Nights at Freddy's is not real.
Yes, it is. They're coming. Guys.
South Park is pretty much the exact definition of a well-written adult animated TV series. They always know what subject to tackle and how to tackle it. Unlike some programs, well, most people could decide like their top 10 or 15 episodes, but with South Park there's too many good episodes to even make a top 10 list out of. In fact, there's not even enough to make top 15, so obviously this was a difficult list to make. And this is the reason why there's been basically no content on the channel since about October, besides the Mario Odyssey video, which was made in like 2.5 days. Well, I'm Dr. X Henry, and today we're going to be counting down my picks for the top 15 best South Park episodes of all time.
There's a reason why this episode gets on just about everybody's best South Park episode list, and honestly, I can see why. The writing is amazing, and this episode is very visually funny. First of all, the story basically goes that the boys start playing World of Warcraft, except there's some person that keeps continuously killing everybody, and they actually want to play the game without anyone continuously slaughtering them. So, they form an alliance with everybody to try and stop them, but that doesn't even work. So basically, they dedicate their entire lives just playing World of Warcraft and just attempting to kill this one person. And while all this is happening, the people at Blizzard are trying to shut down this player due to people not wanting to play the game because he's that level of powerful. All around, it's a very enjoyable episode, but like I said, it's also very visually funny, mainly just due to the fact that, well, it actually uses World of Warcraft character models, and this animated segments were actually animated by Blizzard. And yeah, keep in mind they mock some of their product about, but like all people that play this game have absolutely no life. But well, actually, even to the point where they can understand it and they actually think it's funny, then that just proves how well written and very funny the episode overall is. If you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend it.
At number 14, we have Cartman Joins Nambola. Cartman Joins Nambola consists of, well, Cartman joined Nambola, which, by the way, is an actual thing that exists. Well, wow. But you see, the twist is that Cartman sees Stan, Kyle, and Kenny not mature enough for him, and, well, he thinks that these totally not pedophiles are more mature friends. And also, the episode features a pretty hilarious side plot about how Kenny is going out of his way just so he won't end up with another sibling. Carmen Joins Nambola is an all-around enjoyable episode that is certainly worth your time. Hey, here's a band I know virtually nothing about. Yeah, Korn. You know them. I know they're very popular, but hey, if they're popular enough for South Park to make fun of them, then, well, that means that there's something. Well, at number 13, we have Korn's Groovy Pirate Ghost Mystery. Korn's Groovy Pirate Ghost Mystery works in so many ways. It's a great mockery of the band, and also it's essentially a parody of the original Scooby-Doo 1960s Hanna-Barbera series. My god, did they nail parodying Scooby-Doo. And, well, yeah, there's a debatably good side plot about how the four main boys are trying to scare away some 5th graders, but, well, actually, not gonna lie, I like that side plot. But overall, if you haven't seen this episode, you should seriously go watch it right now, because I think it's one of the funniest episodes in the entire series. Hey, here's an episode that isn't very popular when it comes to best list of South Park episodes. I'm talking about the Black Friday Trilogy. The Black Friday Trilogy is a 3-part episode that mainly revolves around all the boys in the entire town of South Park attempting to get the PS4s or Xbox Ones when they come out and when they can get them on Black Friday. Except they divide and it turns into one huge long Game of Thrones parody. But that's not also what it perfectly makes fun of. It also makes fun of the console wars and has a very good selection of multiple side plots, and also, well, just makes fun of Black Friday's thing as itself. Yeah, I mean, like, it's depicted very violently, but, I mean, like, yeah, it's just extremely well written. Now, why I do think it is the weakest South Park 3-part episode, which, yes, the other 3-part South Park episodes will be on this list. Well, it's still a very solid and funny 3-part episode. It's highly worth a watch just due to its slow pacing, great humor, and overall great variety of side plots, and there's just so much going on that comprehends extremely well. Definitely worth a watch. And yeah, I have a lot more to say about this episode, but I think I might go in depth with this one within a separate review. At number 11, we have Passion of the Jew. Passion of the Jew consists of 4 main boys, all go saying the Passion of Christ and reacting to it completely different. Kyle sees it as that the Jewish community should make an entire public apology for what they did to Jesus in the past. Carmen does some naughty things, and Stan and Kenny just see it as a crappy movie, and they go out of their way, literally just get a refund from Mel Gibson. And my god, the Mel Gibson impersonation in this episode is without a doubt one of the best mockings of a celebrity ever.
I have to use that money to build my church. I've brought the fire and brimstone back to Christianity with the Passion, and now I'm going to start my own church. And do you know why? So I can play banjo. Jesus, oh how I love you, Jesus.
Dude, this guy is freaking daffy.
The episode is funny, all the plots work well, it's just overall one of the best episodes in the entire series that pretty much everyone can agree on. At number 10, we have the Cocoon Trilogy. The Cocoon Trilogy is the 3-part sequel to the season 13 episode Cocoon. And, well, yeah, yet again, every single plot in this episode works extremely well. Basically, it consists of Carmen starting an entire league of superheroes, but then acting like a jerk to everyone else, and eventually everyone kicks him out, and they do their own good deeds. So he attempts to get revenge on them, which the accidentally released Cthulhu event has occurred, and he literally gets Cthulhu on his side, literally just so he can get revenge. Just a bunch of kids just running around in their underwear. And yeah, it also contains some of the best writing in the entire South Park series. It features a side plot about Mysterion, which, yes, by the way, is Kenny, and trying to find about why he is always alive the next week. I mean, like, he's the only one that seems to be aware of it, well, besides Cartman, this confirmed in the Season 5 episode, Cartman Land, which barely escaped this list, by the way. But it looks into that well, and then the entire revenge plot as a whole is also really good. So basically, it's more on the strong writing within, there's 3 episodes, but it is definitely worth a watch. At number 9, we have Cancelled. Cancelled basically starts out exactly identical to the very first episode, but then they all realize something's wrong, and so therefore Carmen received an anal probe. But anyway, they try to get it removed, but then they eventually get abducted by aliens, and then the main 4 boys all learn that, well, that Earth is just one big, long-running reality TV show, and everyone basically sees that they are reality TV show stars, and, well, all the space critics find it unfunny, and Earth as a show is going to be cancelled. Therefore, they don't need it anymore, so the Earth will be destroyed if it were to be cancelled. So, the main 4 boys go on a quest to prevent the network executives from cancelling the show before it gets too stale. And also, I gotta say, for me at least, I think this is the funniest episode in the entire series. I don't think there's a single joke that falls flat, and it just gets better every time you watch it.
Hello, my honey, hello, my baby, hello, my time girl. No.
At number 8, we have the Imagination Land Trilogy. The Imagination Land Trilogy is a 3-part South Park episode that mainly revolves around our main protagonist going into Imagination Land. What is Imagination Land, you might ask? Well, it's the land of where all the stupid and wonderful wacky things that humans have made over the years all live together, but unfortunately there's a terrorist attack and all hell breaks loose. Butters is left behind, and then the terrorists in Imagination Land break a wall that consists of all the evil things that humans have made up over the years, and it becomes a good war between good and evil. Then, meanwhile, on Earth, Kyle loses a bet about how he has to suck Carmen's balls, and then the government is trying to nuke Imagination Land and trying to get as much information from our main protagonist as possible. Another thing I have to say is that, well, it's actually a pretty high visual standpoint for South Park standards, mainly just because there's so many use of just licensed characters that are in the background. I mean, like, there's over 400. You will always spot another one each time you watch the episode. Overall, it's one of the best episodes in the entire series. It's well presented, it is action-packed, it's funny, and it just gets better every time you watch it. Definitely one of the best episodes in the entire series. At number 7, we have Carmen Gets an Anal Probe. Now, I don't know about you, but I love this episode. Despite the fact that it's the first episode in the entire series, it doesn't take away any limitations that it has. I mean, like, yeah, sure, it does focus more on the comedy than the clever writing, but, I mean, like, it's all good as it is. Basically, it's about how Carmen receives an alien probe going up his butt and just goes into denial for the entire time, and Kyle's trying to save from aliens. And yeah, basically that's it, but it's just bombarded with so much cleverness and just a funny moment after another. Now, I do think that, well, like I said, Cancelled was the funniest episode in the entire series. Yeah, I still think it is, but this one is just better presented, and it's in the execution of everything, despite the fact that it was made out entirely from construction paper, it was still absolutely hilarious. I mean, like, the plot is funny, everything is funny, and it's just one of the best experiences for the first time viewing of a South Park episode. If you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend it.
I know I didn't have an anal probe, and I know that I am not under alien control.
I love to sing about the moon and the June and the spring. I love to sing about a sky of blue or a key for two.
What the hell was that?
Hey kids, do you love Chimp Pokemon? Well, now you can buy your very own. I've got to buy Chimp Pokemon. I've got to buy it. I've got to buy it. Now you can collect them all. Furry Cat, Donkey Trunk, Penguin, Shoe, Lamb Toy. Collect them all and you can become Royal Crown Chimp Poko Master.
At number 6, we have Chimp Pokemon. Now, I don't know about you, but I absolutely love this episode. This episode was literally just made to relate to adults that had to deal with the entire Pokemon craze in the early 2000s. And yeah, well, you see, that just opens up so much potential. But basically, it's about how the Pokemon franchise drops, and all the kids begin to notice it and start to act and speak like the Japanese.
Someday I will collect all the Chimp Pokemon, then I will fight the evil power that will reveal itself once all the Chimp Pokemon are collected. Oh?
No, Kitty, you can't have these chicken tenders because they are mine and I keep mine to myself.
But anyway, the parents of South Park try to figure out why the kids love this trash so much, and then it turns out that this just is used by the Japanese as propaganda, and they eventually all join forces against the United States. It is without a doubt one of the best mockeries of the Pokemon brand as itself, and is just one of the most well-written episodes in the entire series that is definitely worth your time. At number 5, we have 200 and 201. 200 and 201 is a two-part episode mainly meant to emphasize the fact that, well, South Park is on its 200th episode. The storyline of this episode is undeniably one of the absolute best in the entire series that yet everyone can still agree on. Basically, the amazingly delivered storyline in this episode that Tom Cruise gets a job at a chocolate factory and his position is putting fudge in a box. He's upset that everyone is calling him a fudge packer, despite the fact that that's his job position, and he is super pissed off, so he decides to get every celebrity that South Park had ever made fun of within the first 200 episodes, and yeah, so basically, they all form an alliance on suing the town. But of course, everyone in South Park doesn't want the town to get sued, so they ask Tom Cruise how the suing could be prevented. And, well, he wants to see a physical appearance of Muhammad in the town. Except they're not allowed to show Muhammad, otherwise they'll get bombed by Muslim extremists. But since Tom Cruise wants it, they either have the choice to get bombed or get sued by Tom Cruise. And, well, yeah, if that wasn't enough chaos, the bunch of gingers come up, and they also provide another bomb threat. But, of course, everything doesn't work out, and it just continues into a series of pretty chaotic events, I have to say. The way that this plot specifically works is that it is very centered around previous side plots from the multiple episodes in the previous 200 episodes. And, yeah, that also works extremely well. And I would go say to immediately watch it, but it's kind of hard to watch because, well, you see, yes, this episode is actually that level of dangerous to air just to Muslim extremist threats that, well, yeah, Comedy Central won't probably ever rerun this episode ever again, just for safety purposes. And also, this has had minimal home media releases, with the only way that you can view this is on the DVD set. But, yeah, only in certain countries, but mostly in the major ones where South Park is specifically popular. You can't watch this on Hulu or the South Park Studios website, but if you can watch it, this is an episode certainly worth your time. Okay, so for number 4, we have Good Times with Weapons. Now, Good Times with Weapons is meant to be an anime parody episode, and I have to say, they parody anime very well, and anyone can pretty much see this despite the fact I'm not very big on anime. And basically, it goes through all the tropes that's in pretty much every anime ever made. Well, you see, it's got the overly detailed design of the characters, the catchy theme song, with horrible dubbing. So basically, that's what the entire episode is dedicated to making fun of. Just anime and Japanese animation as a whole. But if we talk about the actual plot of the episode, it's funnier and smarter than you think. Basically, all the boys receive ninja weapons, and then they screw around with them, and then, since Butters is hurt, they have to find out a way to get Butters to the hospital without their parents finding out that they bought weapons. And that's pretty much it, except if you haven't figured out, this is another major visual standpoint for the show's history. And yeah, basically it swaps the style by using anime this time around in certain scenes, and yeah, it looks very visually funny, mainly not only just due to the fact that it continues the South Park charm, but also the fact that these voices are coming out of those character designs. Like, it's absolutely hilarious. The one thing I have to say before we get to the number 3 entry, that I actually all considered the following 3 entries for the number 1 spot on this list. At number 3, we have biggest douche in the universe. So apparently the entire South Park crew thought that John Edwards was the biggest douche in the whole universe. So they all decided to make an entire episode around it. So basically, in Season 6 is the only continuity season. It's the season where Kenny is actually dead. Okay, and yes, Season 20 did have some continuity in it, but it wasn't entirely built around it. But a few episodes earlier in the season, Carmen drank Kenny's ashes, mistaking it for chocolate milk mix, therefore Kenny's soul is inside of him. But the fact that Kenny is in Carmen is completely going haywire, and Chef takes the main poison and Carmen's mom to go see John Edwards. But then they find out that John Edwards is literally just tricking everybody thinking that he can actually read spirits, and, well, he affects everybody completely different. You see, Chef and Carmen's mom all go to Chef's parents' house to try and get the spirit lifted, but we're treated to an even better storyline about how Stan thinks that the things that John Edwards is doing is completely false, except his rants actually lead him for people to believe him that he can also talk to spirits, and people just don't get the message. And Kyle also thinks that the things that John Edwards are saying is true, and he decides to go in a more religious path for the future of his life. Also, another thing you cannot forget to mention about this episode are the Rob Schneider jokes. The Rob Schneider jokes in this episode are absolutely top-notch.
And here is the stapler. A carrot is Kenny. Rob Schneider is the derp-de-derp-de-deedly-derpy-derpy-dum. Rated PG-13.
At number 2, we have Super Best Friends. Super Best Friends is without a doubt one of my absolute favorite episodes of any TV show ever made. Basically, the storyline goes that David Blaine shows off his magic skills, and he says that he has an entire cult dedicated to learning his tricks. Except it turns out that the cult is really lame, and Stan leaves, but then it turns out that it is a suicide cult, and Stan gets the help of Jesus, who gets the help of his Super Best Friends. And the Super Best Friends is literally just like the Avengers, except it's all offensive portrayals of the big religious figures. But anyway, the Super Best Friends and Stan meet up with David Blaine and all the people about to commit suicide. But anyway, it goes into an extensively long fight scene that is deliberately just to make fun of the early DC cartoons and the way that they just tried to portray messages to everything, and just the way that the overall plot structure worked. Like, specifically Super Friends, which kind of ends the term Super Best Friends, which they're mocking. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I know there wasn't a whole lot to talk about this episode, but the way that everything is presented is just absolutely hilarious. This is an episode that I highly recommend just about any fan of the show.
what you're seeing now are just a bunch of honorable mentions, and yeah, maybe if this video was successful, I could rank them and eventually just make this the total number of honorable mentions and just essentially make an incredibly large list of all the best episodes. But keep in mind, all these episodes I considered for the top 15. If this would have been a top 20, this would have been a completely different story. And you know, this just proves on how many South Park episodes are just good and what could be considered the best. At number 1, we have Casa Bonita. Now, let me establish at first that I don't really know why I consider it the number 1 best episode in the entire series. There's not really any form of commentary, it's not the funniest, it's not the best presented, it doesn't even have a moral or like anything. I mean, like, unless the moral is get your quote-unquote friend that you totally don't treat terribly and attempt to hide him from the general public for a whole week just so you could get somewhere. And yeah, honestly, it's my favorite episode, but yeah, I can understand why people would prefer Cartman Sucks or Awesemo over this one, but honestly, I think it's an absolute must-watch, and it probably won't end up as your number 1 episode, but I think it'll be up there because it's one of the funniest and well-written. And number 1 in both of those categories? No, but I still highly recommend it. Hey, I mean, like, you may not agree with everything I say, but post your favorite episodes in the comments below, and just to show how different the fan base of South Park can be. Somebody's favorite episode can be someone's least favorite episode, because that's the power that the show has. So, this is the first video in a while, and this is Dr. X Henry, and I'm signing off.